Fresh off a battle against Republicans in the Benghazi committee, Congressman Elijah Cummings is taking on a new fight against skyrocketing prescription drug prices. The congressman joins us now. Congressman, it is good to have you on New Day, but it comes at somewhat of a social moment. This news in this headline about U.S. and English intelligence officials being concerned that ISIS may have planted a bomb on the Russian plane. Does that smell right to you? What is your reaction to this?
Well, I think the jury is still out, but certainly if that's true, it's a major problem. I think we've got to contain ISIS. And if they did that, again, that's just another indication that this is a group that has no conscience, and they will do anything to bring terror to the world. And so I'm hopeful that we'll get to the bottom of it.
All right, respect the wait-and-see attitude. It's certainly warranted in this situation. We'll stay on that story. Let's go to the matters at hand. You were very vocal in that Benghazi last commission hearing there in what you thought was an unfair line of questioning and motivation for this. Were you moved by anything that came out of it that made the other members feel vindicated in their efforts?
I was moved when Mr. Gowdy said at the end of the hearing that he had not found out anything after we had spent close to $5 million on this investigation, and that's just with our committee. And then the $14 million that the State Department has spent answering subpoenas, that's quite a bit of money. And by the way, that's taxpayer money. So that was very interesting. But the other thing that I was impressed with is Secretary Clinton. I thought she answered the questions forthrightly, and after 11 hours of questioning, I thought she held up well.
The stamina was certainly commented on. The two big headlines that came out were the access of Sidney Blumenthal and, of course, the switch stories, as it was described, immediately after the actual tragedy, where one thing was said by the then secretary to friends and family, another thing said to the American people. Your reckoning of those?
Chris, I was completely satisfied with her answers. I was familiar with all the documents, the many transcripts in this, in our dealings. The information was very fluid during those course of days immediately after this terrorist act. And again, she was acting on information that she had at the moment. And it's interesting that one of the documents that they pulled was the one where she was talking to her daughter in an email. Again, this was a document that could have been marked easily personal, but she turned it over anyway. And again, she was acting on the information that she had at that moment. The CIA was giving her different scenarios, and so I felt comfortable with her answer, and I thought she did a good job.
The other topic, prescription drug prices.
Yeah.
Who is bilking my prescription drug prices, and why, in your opinion?
You've got some people, some companies that are buying up drugs, and these drugs are usually drugs that don't have a lot of competition, and they're buying them up, and then what they do is they get rid of a lot of the employees. They don't do any research and development, and then they jack up the prices, and they do it because they can do it, and it's about greed. A lot of people, when they go to the pharmacist, Chris, they think that it's the pharmacist's fault or the drugstore chain's fault. It's not their fault. It's people like this fella, Michael Pearson of Valiant, who takes a drug that addresses abnormal heart rhythm, and Chris, overnight, he raises the price from $215 to $1,346. Imagine a relative of yours going into a store to buy a prescription and then find out it's 5 times the cost. And it's pure greed. And by the way, some breaking news for you. I met just yesterday with Chairman Chaffetz of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and he has agreed to now bring in Mr. Shirelli, and so that he can explain to us why he is, Mr. Cerulli and Mr. Pearson, why they are jacking up the prices. Now, I mentioned Mr. Pearson, but Mr. Cerulli is even worse. Cerulli, of Turing Pharmaceuticals, jacked up the price of a drug that deals with helping with the immune system for HIV and cancer patients. He jacked that prices up. Chris, listen to this one. From $13.50 to $750 overnight.
Here's why they say they do it. Two things, 2 points of pushback. One, they charge what the market will bear, especially when it comes to what they call orphan drugs and drugs that don't have as wide an application in the populace. They're very expensive to produce. The research costs, all the marketing costs are all on these companies. And just like everything else, it's supply and demand. That's the first point of pushback.
Well, the problem with that is they're buying them from companies that were selling them, like, for example, with Turing, this drug they were selling for $13.50. They were producing it and making a profit, the company that had it before. So why are you going to now move from $13.50 to $750? Chris, I can hardly wait to have Mr. Cerulli in front of our committee so he can explain to the American people why he is raising the prices like that. And by the way, the money that is made off of these drugs under those circumstances, I consider blood money. You know why? Because people cannot afford those drugs, and people are literally dying.
Well, we look forward to the hearing, and of course, a lot of these practices, you know, from the consumer field, we're saying this has been going on for a while. It's demanded government attention. Let's see what happens now. Congressman Cummings, appreciate you coming on New Day. We will stay on this story.